love about teaching at Georgia Southern is that we have smaller classes, which means I get to develop relationships with my students. I get to see them sometimes while I'm eating lunch out in the courtyard. I get to know them a little bit more so than I would if I was teaching a much larger classroom. So that's one of the things I'm enjoying most about my time so far.
I think the best part of teaching at Georgia Southern is the students. I think that working with my students is by far the delight of my day. I don't think I've ever taught a history course where I didn't learn something from my students, because history is really a collaborative exercise. Sure, students learn from me, but I always learn from my students, and I think that's the thing I treasure the most.
What I love about teaching at Georgia Southern University is the fact that I can take my students out into the field. As a maritime historian, we have numerous rivers and the Atlantic Ocean nearby, so we can actually get out there, get our hands dirty and our feet wet, and get experience for the students.
So my name is Brian Feltman. I am an associate professor of history at Georgia Southern University. I've been here for 11 years now. The thing that I really enjoy about teaching at Georgia Southern University is the variety of students that I get to interact with. I have a lot of students who, like myself, are first-generation students and are kind of really struggling during their initial time at Georgia Southern. And I get some students who decided to come here, when they could have gone somewhere like UGA or Georgia Tech, and then you get everything in between. And so I really like the diversity of students.
Yeah, I would say history provides the context, for me, provides the context for living in the present and in the future. I mean, think about it again. Look at the depth and richness of what knowledge, wisdom, and understanding we get from studying history. That's what got me into learning history. And because of this love for history, I tended to do well in my history classes. And so when I finished first degree, my department asked me to be a teaching assistant. And that's what's on me into teaching history. It explains why I am here today.
So how did I get interested in history? Growing up, both my parents really loved history. We went to museums all the time. They had us reading a lot. We stayed up and watched movies, late at night, like Zulu with my dad. It was always a lot of fun. But as a little kid, my dad was in the Marine Corps, and we went to Yorktown when I was about 1.5 years old. This would have been in 1968, probably 1968. So here's a picture, which he probably would have been arrested for today. He stuck me in one of the little cannons there at Yorktown. So I've been doomed from a small child to be interested in military history, and it's stuck ever since.
The one part of history that I love and I hardly ever get to teach or even talk about is decorative arts. And decorative arts is the study of objects, so movable objects, not fixed objects, furniture, tableware, things like that. And I'm really interested in how they are cultural pieces, how they tell us about our culture. I work that into my classes sometimes, but it's hard to talk about as much as I would like. But I'm really fascinated by how our everyday objects speak about the culture we're in.
One of the things that I like to talk about history, but I don't get the chance to do it all that often, is dancing in colonial America.
I think one of the things that I don't get to talk as much about as I would really like is sometimes the area that I spend the most time thinking about, which is the history of the Enlightenment and the Catholic Enlightenment in particular. I talk about the Enlightenment in all of my courses that deal in some ways with the revolutions in America and France and Haiti and so forth, particularly in France. But it's rare that I get to teach a whole class on just the Enlightenment. Although I do enjoy that when I actually get to do that. It's a great deal of fun.
One of the things that I enjoy but don't get to spend as much time on is the actual structure and function of ancient cities. On the walls of my office I have a lot of reconstructions of what ancient cities might have looked like, and it's fun to talk about how a Roman city was built, how it functioned, beyond just Pompeii or Rome. And I would really like at some point to be able to teach a course on the ancient city and the ancient Roman city. I've been able to do it once with graduate students, and I'm hoping to do it again when I teach in Italy next semester.